For nearly 400 miles, the mighty Sierra Nevadas stand guard on California's eastern border. In the heart of these mountains, tucked away from the mainstream of civilization, lies the incomparable Yosemite National Park. Massive granite domes, rising above, a magnificent valley splashed with vibrant colors. Forests of giant sequoia, some of the world's largest trees. Waterfalls that leap from the cliffs. Soaring white-capped peaks and ice-sculpted canyons. The famed mountain man and naturalist, John Muir, said it best.
So gloriously colored and so radiant. It seemed not clothed with light, but wholly composed of it, like the wall of some celestial city.
Yosemite National Park, truly a gift of creation. Located along the eastern border of Northern California, Yosemite National Park occupies nearly 1,200 square miles and is larger than the state of Rhode Island. Yosemite Valley, 7 miles long and up to a mile wide, is a granite showcase of the park's natural splendors. Outside of the valley, the park is etched with 800 miles of wilderness hiking trails. Going north into the high country leads to the lush Tuolumne Meadows, the largest alpine meadow in the Sierra Nevadas. The park is bisected by the swift waters of the Tuolumne River. The area south of the valley is highlighted by the scenic overlook, Glacier Point. Near the south entrance to the park is Mariposa Grove with its hulking giant sequoia trees. Although the initial park area was established several years before John Muir first came to Yosemite, he became its most famous guide and interpreter. He is called the Father of Yosemite because of his tireless work on behalf of the park. Muir's eloquent and prolific writing in the late 19th century stirred a great wave of public interest in Yosemite and the Sierra. His political influence was essential to the development of the national park concept and the cause of conservation.
The headwaters of the Tuolumne and Merced rivers, two of the most songful streams in the world. The noblest forests, the loftiest granite domes, the deepest ice-sculpted canyons,
yet most visitors see only the spectacular 7 square miles that is Yosemite Valley. Every year, 3 million people come to the valley from all over the world, and they come in all seasons.
As of now, certainly I'm the last person that was born in my generation that's still living in the park. I was very, very fortunate in being born in this park, of course. And my parents retired from here. My grandfather retired from here. He was with the National Park Service. My father first came here in 1907 driving stagecoach. So we have a long history.
Rusty Rust, the Yosemite postmaster, has a unique perspective of the park.
Growing up here as a boy certainly was paradise. It was absolutely marvelous. And my father ran the stables for 21 years, and at that time I could simply go out and get a horse and take off and go see the park. Of course, we have a very, very lovely backcountry. Get off the John Muir Trail, the Sierra Crest, the Pacific Crest Trail, a mile and you think you're all by yourself on the planet. You stay on the Pacific Crest Trail and you're going to meet people all the time. But it's, if you get off that just a mile, well, you've got the whole park to yourself. You can almost feel the whole park heave a big sigh of relief and say, wow, we got through another summer. And then with the first good rains of fall, everything is cleansed and it takes on a new life. It smells good. The smells of Yosemite, that's crazy. But the smells of the different seasons are very important and they're very distinctive when you're here throughout the years. And I tell you, when you get up in the morning after a snowstorm and you see those walls absolutely plastered, just plastered, and then that blue, blue sky, that's something that you're very privileged to look at. And I think it's incomparable, incomparable. We may only have a half a dozen real mornings like that a winter, but boy, when you have them, you better get out and see it. It's a marvelous sight. I think there's a feeling that you can only experience from Yosemite once you've lived here. It's a very privileged feeling, I think. And those people that come here, I hope, realize that. And I've been certainly grateful for the lifetime I've spent here.
As we take in the overwhelming natural beauty of this environment, we can't help but ask the question, how did these wonders come to be? 15 million years ago, this was a broad valley in a rising range of rolling hills. Through it snakes the slow-flowing Merced River. Hardwood forests grow in this mild and rainy climate. 10 million years ago, major forces in the crust of the Earth forced the ancient Sierra Mountain range to rise higher. The increased steepness caused the Merced to run faster, and the valley was cut deeper. As the climate became cooler and drier, the hardwood forests slowly gave way to cone-bearing trees, including sequoias. Yosemite, raised almost to its present-day height, soon transformed the Merced River into a racing torrent, carving the valley into a canyon about 3,000 feet deep. Then 3 million years ago, the onslaught of the Ice Age brought colder winters. The forests began to thin. More than 500,000 years ago, a series of glacial ice fields filled the valley, cutting away the lower walls of the valley and polishing the rocks that were massive enough to resist the glaciers. More than one glacier flowed through Yosemite Valley. About 25,000 years ago, the last of the glaciers knifed through the valley, smoothing the sharp cliffs and polishing the valley walls. The climate became more moderate. About 10,000 years ago, the final glacier melted away. The remaining piles of rock debris acted as a dam that created Lake Yosemite. Over thousands of years, the Merced River gradually filled the lake with gravel, silt, and sand, creating the level valley floor we see today. Tributary streams cascade down to the river from the well-defined, muscular shoulders of granite. And the Earth's sculpture process continues. In the time since the glaciers melted, the weaker rocks around the valley have succumbed to erosion or been crushed in rock slides. The splendor of Yosemite Valley today looks essentially the same as it did to the first people who came here more than 2,000 years ago. The first known human inhabitants of Yosemite were Indians who came across the Sierra Crest from the east. They called the valley Ahwahnee, meaning deep grassy valley. Centuries later, Miwok Indians from the west settled in villages along the Merced River. The people were known as the Ahwahneechee. Today, the park maintains a reconstructed Indian village and historical exhibits that give us insight into the culture and lifestyle of these Native Americans. In the early 1800s, non-Indian explorers began to chart the Sierra country and encountered the Ahwahneechee and their great chief, Tenaya. These explorers named the Indians Yosemites, probably a corruption of the Indian word Uzumati, meaning full-grown grizzly bear. The typical Ahwahneechee dwelling was the Umacha. They were easy to build, and a fire built in the center of the dwelling kept the Indians warm in winter. The Ahwahneechee also built low earth-covered structures. Heated by fire, these structures were used as sweat houses for cleanliness and for curative and spiritual purposes. The Ahwahneechee hunters believed the sweat houses removed all human smell from the body, enabling them to hunt deer more effectively.
I've lived in Yosemite Valley for 39 years, and I've been in...
Julia Parker is a Native American who works as a park interpreter in the Indian village.
During the summertime, between June, July, and August, we have a living history out here, and we do the time period of 1870. We dress out in the calico clothes like the dress I have on, and we do cooking in baskets. We sit out here and we pound acorn. We do some, we have some boys here, young men that do arrowhead making. Well, to the first people, baskets were a utilitarian type of a tool. And the Yosemite people in the valley had nothing but granite, so somehow, somewhere along the way, they developed the basketry by using roots, willows, and grasses. My teachers were ladies from Yosemite Valley, and they've been weaving baskets for years and years. There's rules for making baskets. There's prayers that you say before you gather the plants. You take from the earth and you give back to the earth, and you say thank you. As I weave my basket, my thoughts go back to the time of the ladies that lived here, you know, and when I go out and get the willows in the fall time, and I see them standing there with no leaves, all these straight sticks, I feel like a ballerina out there among the willows, just dancing and stooping and cutting and laying the willows down, and I feel real happy.
The Indians were highly creative in the design and utilization of their baskets. The baskets were used for such diverse tasks as winnowing wild oats and catching fish, as well as storing food and drink. The intricate designs on these baskets are windows into a culture that had no written history and depended upon oral traditions to preserve their identity and heritage.
The story goes back to a long, long time ago.
One ancient legend tells of two bear cubs who slipped away from their mother to swim in the river. After swimming, the cubs lay down on an immense flat boulder to rest. While they slept, the huge rock slowly rose until it towered above the treetops, and woolly white clouds fell over the cubs like a fleecy blanket. The cub's mother found the enormous rock too slippery to climb. Other animals tried to rescue the cubs, but they also fell from the sheer rock face. They say that to this day you can see the dark scratches made by the animal claws at the base of the massive rock. The cubs were eventually saved by a lowly measuring worm, the only animal that could climb the polished surface of the stone. The animals were greatly pleased at the cubs' return, and as a token of honor, named the great rock Tutokanula, the Indian word for the brave measuring worm. Today we call it El Capitan. It is the largest solid granite rock in the world, rising 3,600 feet above the valley floor. El Capitan is one of Yosemite's most precipitous rocks, and its nearly perpendicular walls present challenges that have attracted some of the finest rock climbers in the world.
Just to the right of the shadow, there's a real dark rock formation
Many of the advanced rock climbing techniques currently in use were developed right here. The Yosemite Mountaineering School is staffed by expert climbers who provide instruction in the sport. At the opposite end of the valley is Yosemite's other famous granite earth sculpture, known as Half Dome. Like sentinels, the bold silhouettes of El Capitan and Half Dome guard each end of the valley and are recognized as symbols of the park throughout the world. For years, people believed that Half Dome's northwestern face had been sharply cut in a losing battle with a powerful glacier. But geologists discovered that instead of cutting the dome head-on, the glaciers undercut the mountain's base as they surged down the valley. The unsupported top layers then cracked and toppled away, leaving the dramatic sheared appearance we see today. One of the most spectacular outlooks for viewing Half Dome is Glacier Point. For some, however, Glacier is merely a point of departure for a breathtaking tour of the valley. The valley boasts a number of other striking solid granite domes. These domes are relatively rare, and this collection in Yosemite is the largest in the world. In addition to domes, the valley's exhibition of granite includes monuments carved by water and ice into a variety of mesmerizing shapes. In majestic counterpoint to the stark power of the Yosemite granite is the graceful aquatic ballet of the leaping waterfalls. Known as the place of dancing waters, Yosemite boasts more than half of America's highest waterfalls. But few people have the opportunity to get close enough to appreciate their power and grandeur. In spring, the snowmelt fuels the flow and the falls blast their thunderous spray across the valley. But like any brilliant performance, the run is limited, and by mid-August, most of the falls are merely a trickle. There are exceptions, of course. The poetically named Bridaldale Fall sprays its lovely shower throughout the year. Ribbon Fall, the park's highest single waterfall, drops more than 1,600 feet. But many feel that all the other water shows in the park are merely warm-up acts for the highest falls in North America and second highest in the world. Yosemite Falls, more than 13 times higher than Niagara. This powerhouse unleashes its spectacular falls in a drop of more than 2,400 feet, descending in 3 sections: the upper fall, the middle cascades, and the lower fall. The waters eventually feed into what the 17th century Spanish explorers named El Rio de Nuestra Señora de la Merced, meaning the River of Our Lady of Mercy. On the eastern end of the valley, the Merced River tumbles down the glacially carved steps of the giant stairway, shoots over Nevada Fall, tumbles down Vernal Fall, and then spills into the valley below. Due south of the valley is Badger Pass at 7,000 feet. It is said that Badger Pass is the oldest ski run in California, and it certainly offers one of the more popular winter recreational activities at Yosemite. Some people prefer the solitude and rhythms of Nordic skiing along the 90 miles of cross-country ski trails in the park. The most spectacular entrance to Yosemite is from State Highway 41, known as the Wawona Road. As you emerge from the Wawona Tunnel, you come to Inspiration Point. Wawona is also the site of the Wawona Hotel, built in 1875. Today, the Wawona hosts a variety of family activities. The Pioneer History Center is for visitors interested in learning more about Yosemite's rich past.
This is a cluster of old buildings brought in from the other parts of the park and rebuilt, and each represents a different era in the 1800s and 1900s. It's a wonderful way for families to walk through and listen to the history. They live the history of past eras.
Norma Cook spins yarn for visitors at the Pioneer History Center.
Each of us gives a kind of a chapter, really, of the past, a different era, like 10 or 15 years, way back to 1880 on up to present day. And we live it, and we talk it. I learned all these crafts from my mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. And I've been doing them for about 25 years, and I enjoy it very much, and I'd like to share it with other people, and it's greatly appreciated, apparently, and so I'm encouraged to continue.
The Wawona Road was originally an Indian trail, and Wawona is an Indian word meaning big tree, referring to the giant sequoia in the nearby Mariposa Grove. The giant sequoia is simply the largest living thing on the face of the earth. Some are estimated to be nearly 3,000 years old. Ageless as it is, the giant sequoia will only grow under very specific climatic conditions. The Mariposa Grove is one of the 3 groves located within Yosemite. Everything about these trees is on such a heroic scale that a first-time visitor can lose all sense of proportion and should wander among them to comprehend their gargantuan size. An average giant tree has a girth of 20 feet, and the very largest trees are as thick as 40 feet. Enough to fill an intersection of 2 city streets. Of all living things, wrote one admirer, only the giant sequoia is assured of living long enough to be struck by lightning. The 18-inch thick bark of many mature sequoias bears the scars of fires caused by lightning. Yet even the most severe burn damage may not kill these tenacious survivors. The smell of the groves is pungent. The air is filled with a rich, dry scent. One of the better-known characters in this mythic grove, affectionately called the Grizzly Giant, is the world's 5th largest and oldest known sequoia. Colorful stories about fierce battles with raging electric storms have drawn much attention to this 2,700-year-old tree in the century since it was first photographed. Towering more than 200 feet, the Grizzly Giant was once much taller, but lost its crown to a fiery bolt from the heavens. A veteran of thousands of storms in its lifetime, the tree was hit 6 times in one storm alone. The sound of the wind in the upper branches of this noble giant is soft and distant. This sound has been called pure and haunting, a sigh from a lost time when there were no men here. In fact, when Joseph Walker and his party of trappers discovered these giant sequoias in 1833, the trappers, oddly enough, were disappointed. They weren't hunting grandeur, and the beaver, whose pelts they treasured, were scarce. Then in 1848, gold was discovered in California. As the prospectors swarmed in, new population centers boomed. Initially, clashes between the Yosemite Indians and the intruders occurred. In 1851, the U.S. government formed the Mariposa Battalion and placed it under the command of Major James D. Savage. His mission was to subdue the Indians and move them to a reservation near Fresno. Treaties were made with the Awanichi, and treaties were broken. It became necessary to deploy a second expedition of U.S. cavalry, led by Captain John Bowling. When Bowling's men killed Tenaya's son, the old chief defiantly responded.
Kill me, Sir Captain. Yes, kill me as you killed my son, but you will not live in peace. I will follow in your footsteps. I will not leave my home, but be with the spirits among the rocks, the waterfalls, in the rivers and in the wind. Wherever you go, I will be with you. You will not see me, but you will fear the spirit of this old chief and grow cold.
After the departure of the Indians, loggers left great fields of stumps. Mining companies leveled entire hills and diverted rivers. And mountain meadows were overgrazed by sheep, crowding out the wild creatures and threatening their beauty. A far-sighted California senator, John Conness, introduced a congressional bill to protect Yosemite Valley and Mariposa Grove as California state parkland. The bill was passed by Congress and signed into law by President Lincoln in 1864. It was the first time a wild preserve had been set aside by federal action anywhere in the United States. In the words of the bill, the area was for public use, resort, and recreation. Unfortunately, the legislation protected only the valley and the Mariposa Grove. Much of the surrounding land was still being abused by grazing sheep and by homesteaders and miners. Conservationists were agitating for further change, but they lacked a leader and an effective spokesman. Then, in 1868, the gentle Scottish-born naturalist John Muir walked into the valley. His eloquent lobbying was effective, and by 1890 had moved Congress to greatly expand the size of the original Yosemite Preserve. The land was deeded to the people as America's third national park. John Muir, the man most strongly identified with Yosemite, believed passionately in sustaining the spiritual value of the wilderness. His boundless energy and intense commitment to nature led him to eccentricities such as shinning up a 100-foot pine tree in a gale storm so that he could be closer to the song of the wind in the pine needles. Once, when he was thrown from his cabin, when the earth shuddered and rolled beneath his feet, he declared joyously,
"A noble earthquake! A noble earthquake!"
Muir died in 1914. Some say he died of a broken heart after losing a hard-fought battle to save the beautiful Hetch Hetchy Valley from being drowned by a man-made reservoir. Yosemite, as we know it today, is part of the legacy of John Muir, the spiritual leader of the conservation movement in this country. In 1916, the National Park Service was formed under President Woodrow Wilson. This act ended the administration of the park by the U.S. cavalry. Today, park rangers conduct guided walks, hikes, and evening campfire programs that are appreciated by visitors throughout the year. Among the Yosemite Rangers, Carl Sharsmith is the elder statesman.
People sometimes ask me how long I've been doing this sort of thing, and of course, I just simply point out that my first season was in 1931, so it comes to over 50 seasons, certainly, by now. A very strong influence on me was my discovery when I was a boy of about 14 or 15 in a public library, the writings of John Muir, and they set me afire. Then, of course, when I was sent to Wollomie, I sensed that that was just exactly the place I would most like to be. It was all a fresh, open field. But it was of particular importance to me because there was the place where John Muir and Robert Underwood Johnson had set the plans for a campaign to have Yosemite created as a national park. One of the guiding points in the philosophy of the field school was to have people experience things firsthand, and that appealed to me a lot. They should get down on their hands and knees and feel the glacier polish. They should walk over the snows. They should get down and look at the flowers closely, and so forth, to have direct, immediate, and intimate contact with nature in the park. And so I invented all kinds of walks and hikes that I thought would appeal to all of the classes of people that were there. There are always children that come along, and I would consider them the more important segment of our visitors, and to give them the due and proper attention. And so I try to cultivate them. They're along. I want the children to feel that there's something precious here, and that it's kindly and livable, and can be appreciated and taken care of. Well, I love Yosemite, and Tuolumne has a particular place in my heart, and I want people to feel about it the way I do. There are a lot of old stories about Yosemite. Go back to the horse-drawn stages. My goodness. The lady came running to me one day, and she says, "Oh, Ranger," she says, I feel so badly. I have only one day to spend in Yosemite. What shall I do?" And I scratched my head. I said, "Well, lady, if I was in that kind of a fix, I'd just go down to the river and sit down and have a good cry."
With all the wonders of the valley, it is easy to understand why many people spend all of their time exploring it. But to get a full taste of Yosemite, you should pack your camping gear or saddle up and head out to experience the spectacle of the high country. John Muir Trail, connecting Yosemite Valley with the lovely Tuolumne Meadows, is one of the most beautiful wilderness trails that cross the park. Along the trail, mule deer can usually be seen early in the morning and late afternoon as they emerge to feed. The mule deer was given its name because of its floppy, mule-like ears, its early warning system against the dangers of approaching bobcat, coyote, mountain lion, or human. This animal has been clocked running at 35 miles an hour and can jump as far as 25 feet in a single leap. While some of the park's smaller creatures, like the marmot, are more likely to be seen along the trails, much of Yosemite's wildlife is only accessible to those willing to hike into the more remote backcountry regions. The coyote appears harmless, but is one of the most cunning and resourceful predators in the park. At one time, the steep, rocky eastern flank of Yosemite was home for herds of wild California bighorn sheep. But disease and hunting brought their numbers to near extinction. In 1986, wildlife biologists reintroduced 27 of these rare animals into the park in a program of wildlife relocation. So far, the survival rate of the new generations born in the park has been high. And collars with radio transmitters enable specialists to track the progress of this noble experiment in wildlife conservation. One of the more interesting creatures of Yosemite is the ouzel, which seems to be part bird, part submarine. With neither webbed feet nor a shovel bill, standard equipment on most water birds, the ouzel dives straight to the bottom looking for larvae or other underwater morsels. If the current is strong, the ouzel spreads its wings and seems to fly underwater, as if this were perfectly natural. Many of the creatures that inhabit these woods and alpine meadows sleep or hide during the day and hunt and prowl for food under cover of darkness. One prowler, the black bear, though active both day and night, seems almost to have been miscast in its role as a bear. The trouble begins with its name, since the black bear is just as often brown or tan. It is the smallest of the three North American bears, and because of its lack of size and less ferocious reputation, the black bear does not get the same respect as its two native cousins, the grizzly and the polar bear. Still, they average 300 pounds and are very strong. They have fearsome teeth, can run 30 miles an hour, and climb trees with extreme ease. Though these sound like excellent attributes for hunting food, the black bears are usually too lazy to give chase. To fill their stomachs, they eat nuts, berries, grasses, insects, and anything sweet. Anyone hiking in the backcountry quickly learns to hang up or bear-proof food when not carrying it. Along the trails, we encounter the stark reality of the High Sierra. This is where the glaciers were born in Yosemite. The ice floes have been gone for 10,000 years, but little has changed since their departure. Boulders dropped by the melting glaciers litter the terrain. High-gloss solid granite is evidence of rock that could not be crushed by the ice. it emerged from the struggle compressed and polished by its icy adversary. The raw quality of the high country is counterbalanced by the evergreen forests, cold glacial lakes, and the alpine meadows that blossom during the short summer season. Tuolumne Meadows is the largest of the subalpine meadows. Lupin, aster, and white heather are among the many wildflowers that splash color across its broad expanse. Many artists have tried to capture the stunning qualities of Yosemite and the Sierras. One artist whose brilliance was equal to this ambitious task was the photographer, Ansel Adams. The remarkable body of work by Adams is a testament to his unique eye for composition and a rare gift. Some have referred to it as a soul perfectly in tune with this natural splendor. Yosemite National Park belongs to the people and is a place to rediscover nature and enjoy forms of recreation. John Muir urged the world to
climb the mountains and get their good tiding. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The winds will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while cares will drop off like autumn leaves.
After returning from a trip to the Sierra, it was Mark Twain who declared,
The air up there is very pure and fine, bracing and delicious. And why shouldn't it be? It is the same air the angels breathe.